welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week we speak to Daniel Cudmore, Hollywood famous actor. We also have some news from Toyota about electrics and hybrids, and Ferrari wants to reinvent the V12. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, kicking things off this week is a drive that you and I didn't do, Kyle, but we're both very interested, and I can't wait to get my hands on one here, and that is the Acura ADX. I almost said RDX. The Acura ADX, the baby Acura, the unofficial HRV twin.
Yeah, and see, that's what makes me not that interested in driving it, because the HRV is maybe one of my least favorite new cars. So our contributor Lee Bailey drove it in California, I'm pretty sure, and came away seemingly impressed. And I mean, it sounds like it does a lot of things right. It's basically a high-riding Integra with all-wheel drive. So in that sense, it can't be that bad, right? Like, you get the turbo engine, and that addresses one of our biggest complaints about the Honda, is that it is slow. But this keeps a CVT, so I don't know how I feel about a premium model with a CVT.
And if you read Lee's review, he basically said, like, this is what people are looking for. It's so stylish, it's tech-filled, it's going to be more affordable because it's a smaller size. But as much as I'm a huge CVT advocate in mainstream cars, because it, smoothest, most efficient, I do agree with him. It kind of takes away from the prestige of this vehicle, because it's just, with luxury, it's not rational. Everything is, you're paying for stuff that you don't need, and having that shift feel, I think, is part of it. And I like your optimism. This is a high riding Integra, whereas a pessimist could be, it's a shrunk down CRV. So it's basically driving its drivetrain. But I don't think it's got like the X1 in its crosshairs. I'm sure Acura will say it's a competitor, but I think, it's looking to take sales away from the NX and maybe some of the premium American brands. I think that's more what it's going for.
Yeah, and so maybe that would work. I also just want to point out the price. It starts at $35,000 in America, which is totally fine. But I just want to say that, like, inflation has been such a real thing, that's what the TLX started at when this generation of TLX debuted. And I'm just thinking about how much car you get there. It's fine. It's fine.
After driving an $82,000 CLA last week, or a couple weeks ago, pricing, yeah, it's opened my eyes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. Actually, this is a very price-specific story here. So I drove the 2025 Toyota GR86 Hakone edition. Toyota has been putting out a special edition 86 pretty much every year, it seems. Some of them are like literally paint. Some of them are a little more performance-orientated. This one, as I say in the video, it's somewhere in the middle. The main things are its appearance. It's got the unique green paint that's designed to look like the Hakone forest that surrounds the iconic Hakone turnpike that this is named after. It's got the matte bronze wheels, which right now that's like my thing. I just love bronzy gold wheels, especially matte. So like those wheels, and with that green, like, it's just such a great combo. And then you got the red GR brake calipers. So, sorry, Brembo. I'm confusing my GR cars. It's the Corolla with the GR. This one is Brembo. And that leads me to the other point, is you get the Sachs dampers and the Brembo brakes, which can come on other models, but in the States you pay, I think it's like an extra $2,000 for them. And in Canada, you can't get them on anything but the Hakone. In Canada, there's only 3 trims. So the car doesn't drive any different than a top 86 with the performance package that we've driven the last couple of years, but the tan stitching and interior trim bits mixed with that exterior paint, which I love, it's really cool and stands out. There's only 860 coming to North America, 830 to the States, manual or automatic, and only 30 to Canada, all manual. And in Canada, this is about $3,000 more than the premium manual, but like I said, you don't get the performance package. So $3,000 sounds like a lot, but that package is probably worth that in Canada. So you're basically paying for an exclusive car if you're a huge 86 fan that no one else hardly is going to have. Like, people are not going to come across 3 of them probably at your next car meet.
No.
And then in the States, the premium with the performance package, because you can add it separately, it's $1,000 difference to this package. So again, for $1,000, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the looks alone, like this is the best looking 86, especially after last year's kind of heavy-handed Treno.
Oh
This
yes.
looks a little more subtle. Weirdly, there were what, I think 50 of those in Canada, and I saw 3 of them in the summer. Yeah, this looks great, and I agree with you. Like, it's barely more money, and you're getting a more distinct, unique package, and you still get all the great driving bits. Like, there's a reason this was our favorite in our affordable sports cars last summer in the comparison, because it drives so well.
And it's got the duckbill spoiler, which should just be standard, I think, on the 86 at this point. Like, why not
Yeah.
just put it on? And this is the second Hakone. They did one in the previous gen, I believe, right before it got replaced by this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked good too. But you're right, like the last year's model, it looked like someone that's playing a video game and tries to make a livery for this car to reflect like an old one. It just didn't really match. But so if I was in the market for this car, this is totally like in my market, I would be trying to snatch one of these up because I like it and it's cool, and people who know, and people who don't, it still looks great.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have a GR theme right now. Toyota is stress testing or race testing new hybrid powertrain that could end up in GR performance models. So as we know, the Yaris and the Corolla have the 1.6 3-cylinder turbo. The 86 I just talked about, that doesn't apply to this because that's, I mean, it's a super. Let's be honest here. It's super everything. But this is based on basically what they're using in their hypercar. Same sort of technology. Okay. And they're talking about a 2-liter Atkinson cycle, which Toyota is pretty good at that by now, along with hybrid. Power, who knows, but upwards of 400. I mean, it would add a little weight to these 2 cars, but it also maybe balance it better if you had the battery sitting over the rear axle. Mm-hmm. And more power is always fun, right?
I mean, sometimes it ends up being too much power, but 400 doesn't sound like too much. And like you said, weight wouldn't necessarily be a big addition. It would just be a small amount. And you can milk that inspired by motorsports bit as much as you like if you're Toyota. Yeah,
and like it's 3,300 pounds now, at least the Corolla, because we don't get the Yaris. So let's say you go to 3,500 horsepower and 3,500 pounds. Like, that's a little better power to weight. Well, it's about the same power to weight almost as like a Mustang, and you got all-wheel drive. So, yeah, it'd be fun.
And you have a back seat that's just about as useless as a Mustang's.
Yeah, but if you fold the back seat down, you have the big cargo area all of a sudden.
There we go.
So, moving on to more hybrids and EVs, the new CLA has debuted, and I didn't think this was like next year. I knew it was coming, but yeah, it's going to have electric and hybrid powertrains, at least that we know so far. So it's going to be a CLA 250 plus, I think they call it, and then a CLA 350, and they're both EVs, single motor, dual motor. I think the single motor can do over 400 miles on a charge, which is fantastic.
Almost 500 on the European cycle, admittedly, but still, like, you're looking at 400 here.
Yeah, they're saying like 418 is our guess here, which is, for the size of the car, that's great. And the dual motor probably won't go down much, and its 0 to 60 is going to be something absurd under 5 seconds. Probably talking 400 or 500 horsepower. So basically, the 45 that I drove a couple weeks ago, heavier but torquier. And then there will be I think it's a 1.5 4-cylinder paired with a hybrid using, again, the Atkinson cycle, and that would be probably I'm assuming 250, because then like the plus is EV and 350. I don't know what they'll call it, but that'll be the one that people buy mostly. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm not sure about the looks. It looks a little fish-like and bulbous, but I mean, it sounds like it sounds like a lot of new tech in the smallest Mercedes, and it's kind of taking advantage of that. I do find I wonder how, considering our current market, having Chinese-built engines from Geely could be a bit of a issue.
Yeah, I mean, everything. Yeah, everything's gonna be an issue with the way things are right now. But I would say, to the looks that you talked about, we talked last week or 2 weeks ago that they're going to get rid of the EQ look, and this seems to have adopted more EQ look in the gas, whereas I thought it was going to be the way around. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, and moving on to our second last story of the day. Ferrari has made a patent for a V12 that uses oval pistons, which hasn't really been done. I know Honda did it decades ago on a bike, but they were what's is Ferrari's up and down, or is Ferrari side to side? I have to look it up. It's the opposite of what Ferrari's doing, basically. Ferrari's patent has the ovals up and down, so it's like the cylinders are kind of like tall on each bank, whereas Honda did it more flat. So it was almost like a stretched flat engine. But yeah, apparently this is I don't know. There's advantages that are way beyond my engineering knowledge, but there's got to be some advantage to it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is you got a bigger area, so you could have more or bigger valves.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think oval is they seem more pill shaped to me. I know that's like, nitpicking, but like it's a little different than what Honda did decades ago, right? And Ferrari is unlikely to do something unless there's a benefit. But Ferrari's also it's been a few years now of Ferrari having these wild out there patents, and I guess they're trying stuff, right? So I mean, if this keeps the V12 alive, I guess that's good. I mean, I know it seems weird to say like, but Ferrari V12s are so far beyond like regular people that I'm like, yay, they're keeping the V12 alive. It's like, yeah, I might hear one maybe once a year.
It's funny you talk about the patents. I was going to say, do you remember the one where they had a patent where you like rode a horse to drive a car? That was my favorite one still. But yeah, I mean, even if this is to do with racing, I don't know. It may never happen. I mean, a lot of those patents aren't. So yeah, maybe it's just to keep us talking about it, and you have succeeded, Ferrari.
Way to go.
So last story is the CHR is back, but not the CHR we know, or the one that was recently introduced to Gran Turismo, which also isn't the one we know. This isn't a hybrid, and this isn't gas. It is an alternative to the BZ4X, which I didn't know we needed a smaller, less ranged version of that, but I guess in other markets they do.
Yeah. In Europe, where your average commute is about like a city block, then yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. And their new CHR looks so good. I was in Europe in the summer for vacation last year, and I saw one on the road. I'm just like, dang it, why don't we get this? And same with the Juke. The Juke looks good now. The small SUVs look cool over there. We don't get them.
Yeah, I mean, this CHR Plus, what's with the pluses on EVs? Because the Mercedes said that too. Is that a new thing? Because I don't like it.
Yeah, because it's the car plus.
Yeah, it's the plus version.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like a BZ4X in EV mode, and that may be intentional, may not. But like you said, we don't get to drive it, but cool, it's over there. Maybe it'll come here one day. Crawl across EV version, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this was part of like a pretty massive announcement from Toyota, right? Like with a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, what was that, 3 years ago when they said like, here's 1,000 EVs we're going to make over the next while, all those concepts. We haven't seen the coolest ones yet, but
no, they're saving those. But it also includes updates to the BZ4X, which is useful, and updates to the RZ, which also sounds good, and it'll have more power, more range, which solves some issues. So yeah, like I mean, this looks interesting. I don't know if our market would really like care for it, even if it did come here.
Yeah, but like I said, the other two, the biggest issue with both of them is power and range. More range than power, I would say personally. So yeah, increasing those is well worth it. So yeah, good for them, and we'll see if this tech makes it over here in any other way. All right, well, that's it for news and reviews for this week. We're going to take a very short break, and I'll be back with Greg, and we're going to talk about getting your car ready for spring, because thankfully spring's almost here. And then Kyle and I will be back with Daniel Cudmore to talk Hollywood acting and cars, of course. This is the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors, and we'll be back in a couple seconds. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. We have Greg here again to talk about some new products, although this time I think we're going to talk more about sort of what someone should do as the weather is finally starting to get a little nicer.
Yeah, I mean, so the piece we're going to highlight today is 8 ways, but there's way more than 8. And you don't even have to do all of these to revive your car after winter. And some of these I think are a little more structural and things that you want to do. Maintenance things like checking the fluids. Of course, check your tires. Cold temperatures could always do some weird things with the tires, and getting a good car wash. But one thing I'd like to mention, and I try to do this throughout the winter, is it's good to give your car a good interior detailing if you have the time. But I like to use just these Armor All wipes, which you can get literally anywhere. They're versatile. They're ubiquitous. Like I said, you can find them anywhere. And just kind of use that as a good sort of spring reset. I actually keep them in my garage throughout the winter. So if, hey, you're getting it out of the car, things are salty, there's boots, there's like equipment, sporting equipment, stuff's getting tracked in and out. These are also good for sort of just touch-ups. If there's like feet marks or like the dogs jumping in and out. To me, these are a lifesaver. So I use them. I have an older 2006 Dodge Charger with only 49,000 miles on it, because it's like my car I drive in between press cars. So it gets maybe a week or two of mileage per month. And I like to keep it in good shape, because then it's like, hey, you're driving something that's a little bit different than what other people might see. So I rely on these things, frankly. It has a dark interior, and salt does not look good on a dark interior. So these are they can be a lifesaver.
It's incredible how much dust gets inside a car too, and how quickly, because I usually do this sort of cleanup twice a year, spring, fall, and by the end it looks like you never touch the car ever. So Armor Alls are ones I use too. Just make sure you don't armor all your steering wheel. That's never a good thing.
That's true. I think what I like about the wipes too is you don't have to like spray and get like mist all over things, like the windshield. You get the wrong type of fluid on the windshield or on like the glass, and things can get kind of streaky. So I like the wipes. Again, you can even leave them in your car. My garage gets kind of cold, unfortunately. I don't turn the heater on, which we talked about last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, garage heaters. So you don't want these things to kind of like freeze or kind of get stiffened up or something. But I do keep them in like a warmer part of the garage. And again, it's like a Swiss Army knife, It's good for shining up your interior. It's good for cleaning up food, barf, whatever might be in your car. Very useful. And it's kind of mid-March. Probably we'll still get a little bit of snow. Maybe we'll get some more salt, but it's a good time to start to think about, checking things that maybe you haven't thought about in the last 3-4 months.
Yeah, and we're right around the corner from mud season, and then that starts getting dragged into the cars. And yeah, like I said, they're good to have there for spot cleanups, because you never know, especially if you have leather. It's just easy to quickly clean something up before it dries or sets or whatever.
I would honestly say fall and spring are probably worse than winter in many ways, at least in this climate. It's muddier in the spring and in the fall, frankly, and you get leaves, you get dust. It's a mess. It's frankly, car ownership, car maintenance can be a pain, frankly, keeping it clean how you want it to look.
Yep. No, I agree. So before we let you go, let's just take a quick moment to once again talk about the used car listings on AutoGuide.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. We have a bunch of them. We're putting up about anywhere north of 40 every week, give or take. This week, one of the many cool ones we actually had, this is a 2015 Audi R8 V10 special car. The V10 really added like an extra layer of hot sauce to the R8, which was already, I think, a seminal car. It really just, to me, it hit the turn of the century. There weren't that many vehicles like this that frankly were, attainable is kind of, I'm playing fast and loose with that word, but you could get an R8, frankly. Like it was a thing that you could get if you had the money. And I think it really hit with enthusiasts. The Lambo DNA didn't hurt. I have fond memories of testing these things out. You know, the gated shifter. Oh my gosh, that's one of the top 3 best manual transmissions I think I've ever driven. And then obviously you can check this listings out. This one has Recaro seats, a fair amount of extras, stage 2 ECU tunes, so look out for that. Some nice pictures on here. It looks like whoever shot this did it in front of a biplane. I would say that's a replica. It doesn't look like an official World War I biplane, but still a very nice picture. So yeah, check out the listings. Lots of good ones last week and many more coming this week. I was just previewing them, and there is a lot of cool stuff coming. So did you ever drive the... Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I drove one R8 pre-facelift. Dude, yeah, it was a great car. It at the time, like you said, it was somewhat attainable compared to a lot of supercars, but it also had the whole Audi dealership network backing it, so that was kind of a plus.
Yeah, you could literally see these at like an Audi dealer. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't have a Lambo dealership on my corner, so having the ability to go see something like this, it was maybe not quite as ubiquitous as say a Corvette or something, but yeah, it was there. Yeah. It really hit with people of a certain age, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And Iron Man drove it, so that was always cool too. So anyway, well, thank you for coming by. Next week we will have some more products and maybe even some more cars to check out.
Sounds good. See you later.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there, it's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For this week's episode, we have a very special guest. For those who are listening, who can't actually see what's going on, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Hi, my name is Daniel Cudmore. I am an actor and a stunt performer. I have been lucky enough to play in this world for, I'm aging myself now, 20 years. I've been in some sort of smaller franchises like the X-Men franchise and Twilight, these little tiny independent movies. Mm-hmm. And I've been lucky enough to do this for a living for, like I said, 20 years. So here I am. I'm also, the reason why I'm on the show, I've been obsessed with anything with a motor since I could walk. And I like to say, well, actually I was told to by my father, I say, I've got champagne taste on a beer budget. So in the perfect world, I'd have a massive car collection, but I have kids, so they just suck any money out of me that I have left.
Well, you're in good company with us. The taste and the budget.
There you go.
So
yeah.
So Daniel, because first of all, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. It's always nice to have another Canadian on the show.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
So one of the first questions that I'm just going to kick off with, because we ask everyone this, is, well, you hinted at it there, is what really got you started in cars?
I think as a kid, I loved the idea of going fast. You know, like what kid doesn't like going fast? I grew up on a hill in a small town outside of Vancouver. And so everything was like fast to get to school, slow to get back. So it was a lot of like riding mountain bikes down the hill as fast as I possibly could, and then like slogging it up the hill. And then I got into dirt bikes. So then I'm like, oh, this is way more fun. I don't have to worry about riding up the hill. And then, you know, and then I started getting to an age where the idea of having four wheels, you know, and learning how to drive cars at like 12 and 13 years old at friends' farms and various things like that, it just kind of got me obsessed with this world of freedom that they give you, the ability to just like go out the door, go for a drive, and be somewhere new. And then, funny enough, it was the film industry that really got me obsessed. I remember watching a movie called Condor Man when I was a kid, which was like this super cheesy spy thriller. I don't know if it was Disney, but it was in that kind of realm. And there was a car chase scene. Condor Man had this terrible, like, kit car Corvette looking thing that I didn't care about. But there was this chase scene through Istanbul, and all the bad guys had 1980s Porsche 911 turbo whale tail, all black. And I just remember being obsessed with those cars. I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. And I think that kind of kicked off my Porsche obsession, along with just my obsession with cars. And it's just been something, you know, since then. Anything that's mechanical and guttural and, you know, all of those things just kind of like hooks me.
I had to look up Condor Man after you said that to see what it was all about.
Yeah,
that's a crazy car.
It's a wild,
it's cheesy, a jet-powered car.
Yeah, but like the bad guys' cars were just the coolest black whale tail 911, you know, Widowmaker type, you know, just cool cars. And I was like, this is, and they drove down the hill into the, you know, like it was like this massive switchback, and Condor Man's going the long way, and the bad guys just go straight down the hill. That was great.
Yeah, they have those pictures here, which is cool. It's a 72 Nova Sterling. I don't even.
Oh, is that what it is?
But yeah, that's what it was based on. But you're right, it's like a kit with fake jets on the back.
Yeah.
So once you got down and there started, it was like, I don't have to drive. Were you immediately going to go get a car, or did you have to sort of wait a while because of other things going on in life?
No, I made a deal. My dad made a deal with me. He said, whatever you save, I'm at you. And of course, my first job at 14, like legal job, as opposed to like things like, hey, work on the table, mow the lawn, that kind of thing. Not, you know, running drugs or anything like that. But my first sort of like proper job was working at a gas station. So I worked the full serve, and like all the high-end cars would come in on their way up to Whistler, because classically the Vancouver to Whistler Road was great for cars because it was really twisty, beautiful views, lots of elevation changes. So a lot of people in the city with really nice cars would always stop in to the Chevron where I worked, and they get the 94 octane and they drive up. And so a lot of times I had to just like oogle over them, or I would actually get to fill them up. And then once I raised enough money, I managed to get myself a 1981 Volvo 242 GLT with a manual transmission. And that was my car that I learned to drive, and, you know, learned to pull out of ditches when I thought I could be a rally car racer, and, you know, all those things. And that just sort of started from there, and it just sort of like evolved. I like snipped the springs in shop class. I tried to straight pipe it, you know, like horribly, like all these just terrible like work jobs that I did on it to try to modify it. But I loved it. It was just so much fun, and it was just nice enough that I really loved it, and not too nice where I didn't mind trying to do the work myself on it.
That's fair. I feel like that's kind of an ideal starter car, right? You don't want something too nice.
No, and like, you know, it was perfect in the aspect that the thing weighed a ton. It didn't have a lot of horsepower, but it was rear wheel drive, front engine. And so learning how to like oversteer and learning what understeer is, and going down gravel roads and not worrying about the paint as much, you know, like it was the perfect car for a young kid to like learn all about the physics of what a car will do when you're just driving it too hard or trying to overdrive it, things like that. Like you could get yourself in trouble, but not very fast enough. It wasn't like, hey, here's a 350 horsepower car, rear wheel drive, standard good luck. Like it was just,
Yeah.
maybe 150, and and the thing was just built like a tank. It was rusted in all the spots that any car in BC would be, but I loved it. I thought it was so much fun.
It's probably 152 horsepower with that straight pipe.
Oh yeah,
You unlocked a couple
that
ponies,
that was at least 0.5 horsepower right there.
and it's a Volvo, so if you did crash, you're pretty safe.
It
So,
was the tank.
so I have a question then. I don't know when it would be, but when did you like get your first big movie role where you're like, I can go buy myself a cool car now? Or did you ever get to do that?
That was X-Men 2. That was the first. I mean, like I look back on it, and fiscally, it would have made a lot more sense if I dumped that money into some apartment buildings and like bought an apartment here in Vancouver. But I was 21 years old, 22, and growing up in a small town, like the sort of, it was very blue collar, the town I grew up in. So like the really cool cars back then were all the guys who were loggers who would go up to camp and make all this money and come back. And majority of them had Mustangs, like Mustangs and Corvettes, like Camaros. And so when I was a kid, like the 1993 5-liter LX notchback, black with 17-inch centerline wheels, like that was it. And so when I first made some money in film, I bought myself a Mustang. So I had a 1989 GT that some guy had owned since it was brand new, and it was like it just sat in his garage and bought it off of a guy in West Vancouver, and he had done a whole bunch of work to it, and all of it was like high-end stuff, and it had no kilometers, and that was my first big purchase, and I was just like, I loved that car.
And you fit in it, I guess?
Barely. Yeah. I like forced myself to fit in it. I was so excited about it that it had a Recaro race seat on one side, just on the driver's side. And it was one of the ones where it was not the full rigid, like you could actually let it recline a slight bit. And so I had it like way back. My hair was always brushing the roof. I looked a little bit like Donkey Kong shoved into a tiny go-kart, but dude, I love that. That car was the best.
Do you know what happened to that car?
I ended up selling it. Years later. I drove the thing into the ground. The motor was leaking in all the wrong places, and I just got to the point where it was like it just made more sense to move on to something. Like trying to drive that thing in Vancouver in the rain or in the snow was just a gong show. So it was time to move on to something, and I can't remember what I replaced it with. I can't remember if I had bought something and then sold it, but I'm pretty sure I had at one point I had like 3 vehicles, and it was the one that had to go on the chopping block because I really had nowhere to store it. I thought about trying to see if there's any way to get it back, but at this point I'm just it's all good. It was a good chapter.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, it's probably long gone by now.
Oh yeah, it's probably been wrapped around a tree or something.
It's one with the earth
crowd.
again. Yeah. So I don't know how many viewers or listeners might know that X2 was your first big Hollywood movie, and that was a big deal for the car world too, because there was a special edition RX-8 in it. So during your career, how often have you been around cars during productions, and how often are they runners versus, kind of cobbled together Frankensteins?
Yeah. I think that I'm trying to think back. I remember the day that they had that. I remember it was on set. It was like this big thing, like Mazda, all the executives were there. And they thought all the producers thought it was hilarious to take photos of me trying to fit in it.
I was going to say, there's no way you drove that car, because I didn't fit in an RX-8 hardly.
Because there was a conversation where my character at some point would get in it, and then that died real fast when they saw me try and get in it. I thought that was a really, really cool car. I'm trying to think what other movies that I was a part of that may have some kind of special edition. That's always the tricky thing too, is on these big features, you shoot in such small blocks per character, depending on what your character is. Some characters, obviously the leads will go all the way through, so they'll see more, or they will be part of. But I can't really recall any other really interesting cars on shows that were, one-offs or new. or anything like that. But no, I can't. I just do remember that blue RX-8, was it, or RX-7? I can't remember.
Yeah.
RX-8.
8. Because I
Yeah.
owned one for a couple years and I
Oh,
loved
did
it, even though it broke down all the time. But I barely fit. Like my head was on the roof liner the whole
Right.
time with the seat angled. So yeah, there's no way
No.
you'd get in that. I'm sure the X-Men movies had some sponsor, but it's probably just like the secondary cars that mean nothing to the story are all Acuras or GM
Yeah,
or something.
I don't know, because I know for a while there was like an Audi link, but I don't know if that was just Marvel as a blanket or if it was like, because I know there was a lot of Audi in all of the Tony Stark stuff and all the Iron Man stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
Having just watched all the Marvel movies, yes, whenever there's Iron Man, it was an Audi. Whenever it was an Avengers, they had Acura for some reason.
Yeah,
I remember the first ZDX was like all over one of the movies because they're trying to push it, and in hindsight, it looks so bad.
Yeah, that was not a good choice, because it wasn't a 2-door coupe SUV. Like, wasn't that?
It had 4 doors, but the back
It
seat
did?
and the trunk
They were
were
like-
useless. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was useless.
They weren't suicide doors in the back, were they?
No, they were just
No, but I think
really
they
tiny.
handle thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's another one of those vehicles that I like to refer to as the Etch-a-Sketch model, where it just looks like someone just like harsh, sharp lines. Very similar to the child building the Cybertruck, where it's just an Etch-a-Sketch.
Somebody's shop class with the angle grinder and nothing else.
Yeah, they're just like, I don't really want anything round or soft. I want everything angular and hard. Let's do Etch-a-Sketch. This is the easiest way to get a straight line to a straight line to a straight line. We're good to go.
Yeah. Sold. So knowing that you are a pretty tall person, I think you're 6'6", is that
Ish.
Yeah. How does that create a challenge when you're shopping for a vehicle? Never mind, I mean, you also have a family in tow, so that makes it even tougher.
That's the tricky thing, yeah, because like, I'm no longer just shopping for myself. When it was myself, I didn't, the seat behind me didn't really ever matter. People were like, oh, can I get back there? No, you're gonna have to find another way. Either you sit in the front seat or the seat behind the passenger, and that's about it. But now with kids, like, that completely changes the game. So, when you go SUV shopping, you've got to find something that's long enough and that the middle seats will move enough that you can give the room for them, especially when they were young and everything was the rear facing child seats and basically would just take up that whole area. So that was always a bit of a challenge. We ended up just landing on an Audi, or sorry, on a Volkswagen Atlas, just because of how cavernous it is. Not out of any choice of driving dynamics, more or less just like it gets from A to B. It has enough sort of things in it that we need, and I fit with kids in it, and that was basically it. Because like anything that has any fun driving dynamics with kids, you're jumping up another 30 grand into, Q7s or the big BMW X7 and things like that. And then you're watching your kids just destroy a $85, $90, $100,000 SUV with just food and everything. So it's like, kind of like, what's the point? And then for me, I'm always like, you need that Swiss Army knife. Like in the perfect world for me would be an RS6 wagon or an E63 wagon. Like that would be my favorite. But even then, like if I put the seat back, the person behind me is nothing. They have nowhere to sit, and unless it's like little tiny kids' legs, and I don't really feel like having $150,000 car because that's an insane amount of money for something that gets you from A to B.
Yeah. Spend the money on like a toy car, something fun on the weekends. But every day, I totally get you. I've had nicer cars, not super nice, and yeah, you worry about every dent, every scratch. Now I got a beater.
Right.
It's got more stuff on it, worth more money than the car is, and I just don't care about it, and it gets me around.
Yeah, let's do it. I drive an F. I'm like I got a really good deal on an F-150, and I've like spent a little money, so I don't spend a lot in the aspect that I've put a leveling kit and I put some 35s on it, and it looks like maybe 25% of what a Raptor is, and probably is, but for me that's enough, because then I don't have to go in and somehow convince myself that $125,000 truck is a smart thing to do when I'm never going to go in desert racing in it.
Yeah, that could be a new career.
What's that?
That could be your new career.
Yeah.
What's that? Desert racing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're lacking a few of those around here in BC. You might have to fly back down to LA and live down there for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny you mention that because I think about most of the Raptors that I ever spot are always, downtown in a city core. It's just like,
100%.
oh,
And they're like,
great.
they're so clean and like, and granted, you know what? If I had the money, I'd probably be doing the exact same thing. Like if I was going to spend 120 grand, but like I still kind of want to see what they could do if for 120 grand. If you're going to put like even that 37-inch tire option on a F-150 Raptor, it's like what is it, like $17,000? I want to see what that $17,000 suspension does.
Yeah. No, that's
We say
fair.
that in a lot of our Raptor or like Rubicon Wrangler reviews. We say like, it can do all this stuff, but no one's taking this car there. Like someone who's really going to do it is buying like what you got, a F-150 or a base Wrangler, and then doing everything they need themselves.
Totally, because like in the thing about like anything go off road in BC, unless you go into the sort of like desert region, the sort of more inland stuff, everything's in BC is just these tiny little old service trail roads and logging roads where you're just going to pinstripe your truck with just branches. So you're like, might as well just get some kind of midsize and go, get it for cheap, put in a bunch of suspension and beat the you know what out of it.
I'll let Kyle get to the next question in a second, but he and I were on, or maybe it was just me, but I was on an event and they had a whole bunch of vehicles to off-road, and one of them was a Raptor, and we couldn't take the Raptor on half the trails because it was too wide. So like that kind of defeats the purpose of it right there.
Totally. I mean, that's why the Ranger Raptor is such an enticing little vehicle, but you're still talking about $80,000 for a mid-sized truck. Like, sorry, what? You're going to charge me 80 grand for a mid-sized truck? I could get a 2001 F-150 with the Ford V8 in it and still put enough, like supercharger and lift and tires and still be less than 80 grand and have something that's like a Raptor R.
So what we're saying is that modern cars are too expensive. I think we can all
100%. I think everybody agrees. Like it's insane. Not to keep talking about trucks, but like literally just because it's my world right now, I was thinking about trading in my lease, and I priced out the exact same truck, albeit with a different motor, just because the 2.7 I don't think is available. So it was like a $2,500 option, and from 2021 to now 2024, when I was looking, it's like $15,000 difference. But there's nothing different except for the motor, which when I picked mine up was a $2,000 option. Like, so where along the lines did everything become that much more expensive? And I'm just like, $100,000 pickup trucks don't make any sense to me.
Well, at least we're not entering a trade war now that's going to jack prices up even more.
Yeah, that too bad we don't have a just absolute lunatic in politics down there in the States. He's like honestly, he's like a 5-year-old who's just throwing a temper tantrum that either has to go to the bathroom or needs to eat some more food or needs a nap. Like it's just, you're like, what am I?
We tried those
things.
Guy?
Yeah. Like, his team's probably like, Donald, do you need a snack? Donald, do you need to go to the bathroom?
You speak like a experienced parent that's had to go through those days, because I know exactly what you mean.
I'm literally going, my son's 6 years old, and it is sometimes just peaks and valleys.
So we talked about your first car and your recent car. What's been your favorite car you've owned, or is it that Mustang, or is there something else that you wish you never got rid of?
Oh, two vehicles I wish I never got rid of. One was a 2008 RS4, Audi RS4. I literally, what did I have? 48,000 kilometers on it when I bought it. It was just like Daytona gray, black interior. I couldn't find the titanium package, which darkened the wheels, the trim, and the mirror caps. So it just got the regular one, but that was just such a beautiful car. It dove into the corners a bit like all Audis do, just because of the weight of the all-wheel drive system being out so far out front. But like, just like what a great car that thing was to just hit 200 RPM in a V8 that just sounded beautifully. And the other one was the 1997, I had a Defender 90.
Oh, nice.
And it was white. It was a bit of a tricky one because it was like, it was sold to me as a North American spec. And I went and got it. I bought it because I got excited, and I do that sometimes. And then I went and got some work done to it at a Land Rover shop in town here. And the guy's like, hey, you know, this isn't a North American spec. This is one of those gray market, like Saudi vehicles. And then I was just super bummed and frustrated that I kind of got duped. So I made the shop who sold it to me buy it back for me. But now I look at what people are trying to fetch for them, even if it was a gray market, like it was still in pristine shape. So those sort of two that I really wish I'd sort of held on. Everything else I'm like okay with, but those two I really I wish I just kind of kept them somewhere. Those would have been two good ones. The RS4 especially, I really like that one.
Mm-hmm. Those are nice cars.
I feel like those are ones that definitely just keep going up in value these days.
Totally. And yeah, I remember there was one vehicle I should have bought, but it would have like really stretched me. And that was way back. What was this? It was in like probably 2000. I don't know. It was either early 2012, 2011. There was a 1997 911 C4S manual, dark blue, black interior. It had around 50,000 kilometers or less. Maybe it was less than 40,000 kilometers. It was for sale for $72,000. And I was like, this thing's going to be worth money. I need to figure out how I can buy this. I tried to get in it. I couldn't fit. So I'm like, this would just be literally in some garage sitting. And then I saw a 911 similar for sale right now. And it's like 220 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, oh, I knew that one would go up, but I didn't know if I'd be able to hold on to it for that long.
Yeah, those ones are rough. Mike, you wanna? Yeah,
I got one more question before we let him get back to his day. So I know you mentioned it at the start, and I've been following you for a long time online. You're doing stunt stuff now and more stunts. Do you ever get to do any stunts with cars?
No, that's again, like that's a tricky one because of my size, right? And there is such like a core group of stunt drivers in Canada, especially like on the West Coast, that are so good at what they do that like trying to get in there is very tricky. Like you really have to specialize and be honest, like, you got to fit in the vehicles. Like I just don't fit in most of the vehicles. I've done like one or two little stunt days in cars, but they're like drive down this road and just, you know, hit the brakes hard and honk like it, you know, someone's trying to cut through an intersection or something like that. Nothing too crazy, but at the same time, like, you know, you look at these car stunts and they are stunts. They are, you know, they have all of the devices to keep them safe, but it is still a car wreck. Like it's not, you know, it does put some miles on your body. So, yeah, I've always, in my head, I'm like, I could do that. But then when I send a signal from my head to my feet and my hands, it doesn't quite do it the same way that they do. So I'm just like, I'll just let you guys and girls be the pros, and I'll just watch from the sideline and clap.
So no hanging onto the roof of a car while it speeds down the highway?
That I'm fine with.
No,
That, like, you know, like when I did the Halo Ford Onto Dawn, when we originally did the marketing campaign for the fourth video game to come out, and we shot the movie and I was in the Master Chief stuff. We did a whole Warthog thing where we were flying down these service roads, like, you know, firing, and I was sitting on the back with a 50 cal firing. I looked down and I'm like, all the young actors are getting strapped in with harnesses and waist belts and all these things. And I'm like looking around going like, I'm just holding on to this gun. Like I'm the one standing up on this back, and we're doing like 80 kilometers an hour to 100 kilometers an hour down this back road, drifting it sideways. This thing's got 4-wheel drive and 4-wheel steering. And I'm like, oh, and we did this for hours. And the next day, like I could barely close my hands. It felt like I had done a whole day of wakeboarding or like water skiing. And I was just holding on for dear life because I knew I was all 300 and something pounds of me in this suit would go flying off this thing so fast. But that was cool.
Even though you were in the Halo armor, I'm assuming it's not, you know, actual armor.
Yeah, not so much. It's just a big pile of foam and rubber. I'm like, but I had a blast doing it. Like I was like, this is the stuff, you know, I used to be, you know, back of the truck, surfing in the truck bed back in the day when I was a kid, you know, on the back road. So I've done all this stuff before. At least I have something to hang on to. You're surfing in the back of a truck bed in the back road of a small town. You don't have much to hold on to.
Nope. Who would have thought that would translate straight to starring in Halo web series, bombing down some road.
Yeah. I got all my training in as a kid, just trying to do stupid things.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. Is there anywhere or anything coming up that you want people to check out?
I mean, I was in Toronto, like I mentioned, to you guys earlier before the show started. I was in Toronto last year, and I did all the stunt work for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So I was doubling Jacob Elordi as the creature. So that was that's going to be coming out, I believe, in November. I think October, November, somewhere around there, which I'm really excited. We did some amazing things. The stunt team was just fantastic. The acting in the movie is amazing. Just visually so beautiful, and I'm excited for that. And then I got to play around in Percy Jackson season 2. I was playing around in season 1, and now I'm playing these big giants running around and getting up to no good. So that comes, I don't know when that new season is going to be airing, but that will come out too. So yeah, some fun things.
Very cool.
It's very awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dan, for taking the time to come and talk to us. And yeah,
appreciate it.
That's
Thanks for having me on, Kyle. Mike, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have you on again. And like I said, next time you're in Toronto for a long period, maybe we can go shoot something in person.
Yeah,
love to. We just got to pick something to fit in.
Yeah,
we'll bring him out.
Yeah, or you'll be in the pickup bed again.
Yeah, right. There you go. If it's a Miata, we just have to pick a sunny day so we can have the top down the whole time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up this episode. It's a little shorter. We thought we'd give you guys a break from the marathons of recent. So this week, we have both been in town, which is a rarity. I have been driving another GR, the Corolla, which you may say why. Well, it is the automatic, which is kind of a big deal because the STI never had an auto, and the Evo and still the Golf R have a dual clutch auto, but no one's really tried putting just a good old 8-speed in one of these cars. So I'm not going to say any more about it.
Okay. Well, I basically have the same vehicle. I also have an 8-speed automatic turbocharged vehicle. That's it. No, I have a 2025 911 Carrera Cabriolet. And the interesting thing there is that it is the base model 911. So it got the least amount of upgrades for this facelift, which is already a pretty slight facelift. It has 9 more horsepower, but it's also the convertible. So it is the least sporty one. And that's all I'm really going to say about that for now.
Sounds good. So then next week, I'm not going anywhere, having quite a streak of getting to stick around, and I will be driving the Lincoln Nautilus, which I can never not say and not think of the Mercury Villager Nautica edition.
Oh, yes. What a blast from the past.
Like a Nautilus Nautica, like it just seems like a perfect tie-in right there.
Get on it, Lincoln. Yeah.
Nautica.
Not a lick. Yeah, we're gonna get in trouble. So you were originally actually going to be in the car that I'm going to be driving next week, which is the BMW M240i xDrive. So the coupe, which also got a light facelift. That seems to be the theme for me lately, and it should be interesting. I haven't driven it since it launched. Mm-hmm. And and xDrive is just the only option in Canada. We don't get rear drive 2 Series unless you go to M2. So I'm just curious what it's like to live in the city, because that kind of size is ideal.
Yeah, I like I said, I was going to drive it, but just things came up and it made more sense for you to have it than me toting around the family. So I look forward to your thoughts on it. We will wrap this up for this week then and be back again next week with more guests and a lot more stories. So until then, this has been the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors, and we'll see you later.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you order the right thing. All the parts you need at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.